And we're live, according to my computer. Woohoo! This should be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. How do
Mm-hmm.
I look? I don't know.
You look great.
Okay. Because I've had to like lower the resolution of everything.
No, you look fine. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Why do I hear me?
I don't know.
Are you logged into YouTube?
YouTube? I can be. Would you like me
Hold
to
on.
see?
No, don't. No, 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 no. No, that'll like jack it up. That's frustrating because I can you hear me talking right now?
I can hear you talking.
What did I just say?
Can you hear me talking? Is what you said.
I hear feedback.
You hear feedback? I don't see. I don't hear it. Well, I don't hear it. You do.
Like what I just said, I'm gonna hear it again in my ear in like a few seconds. And I don't
Know why? Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna try this one more time. Don't say anything. Okay, we're good. Yay! Hello, people.
Technology.
That was a little freaky. I live way too close to two cemeteries to be hearing random things like that, even if it is my own
Yes, you do.
voice. All right, we're good. We're here. We're
Yes, we
live.
are.
Hello. Hi, Anne.
Hello.
Introduce yourself
Hello.
again for the people.
Good people. My name is Anne, also known as best friend on most platforms.
As I hit the screen, best friend.
Yeah, literally. um, and I have become fairly addicted to going to the movies thanks to Savannah.
I do what I can for the people.
So here we are, um, once again, and it's morning. Although I'm drinking my second cup of coffee now.
As one should.
Mm-hmm.
I just did my Kiala greens. I got it off of TikTok. Well, yes, the one I'm doing right now, I got off of
Yeah.
TikTok. The one I just
Mm-hmm.
got, I got off of Amazon because I couldn't wait. But then again, I'm
Of
making myself
course.
wait, so I have to finish this first one and then I can start the next one.
So I feel like the cycle is still going.
It is. This is the problem with TikTok Shop. I'm addicted.
I think everybody is at this point. I think
It's
everybody's addicted to TikTok
rather
Shop.
shameful.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just waiting
It's
to
fine.
see if anyone else wants to come in. I'm done waiting. Okay, so
Keep going.
what did we do? We went to see Cabrini last night, but in two
Mm-hmm.
separate time zones.
Correct. We
And
did.
I kind of made you do it
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was a good movie, so I'm not mad.
because that's what best friends do. They,
Mm-hmm.
come up with crazy ideas and then involve other
And then
people.
you call me and say, "Hey, I have a really crazy idea."
Yeah, because
Although to be
as
fair, you do give me opportunity to say no. However, I'm good.
that's so generous of you.
It's only 30 seconds of a no, though. Let's be
No,
honest.
as Kevin Hart said so eloquently, you're my best friend. Well, he said
Yeah,
curse words. My
curse words.
BS
Yes,
is your BS.
yeah.
Like
We've been through enough together that I feel like that's pretty accurate.
you're either an accessory or you're contributing bail money, which has happened.
Which has
Where I said,
happened.
"Hey, I have an idea," and then you Venmo me $10. You're like, food or bail money, whichever comes first.
Whichever one comes first. I have done that. That is true. Oh, that's
All
funny.
right. So
Mm-hmm.
you saw Cabrini, and where were you? Where were you? What city were you in exactly?
Charlotte.
You saw it in which one in Charlotte?
Regal. I went to Regal, because I do have that Regal Unlimited.
The Regal in Valentine.
Stonecrest. So
So,
yeah, I guess
that's
Valentine.
right. Duh.
I was like, technically it is. The one in Ballantyne, like that was in that village area, is
It's not
gone.
there anymore.
So no, it's not. It's
Oh,
gone.
that's sad.
I
Well, I've
think
never
now it's
been
just
there.
like
I'd always wanted to go.
yeah, I've been once, but it was like a. I think now it's like a bunch of restaurants.
So saw it
Hmm.
at my normal AMC theater,
Correct.
where
Hmm.
some of them actually do know my name.
That is true.
It's my version of Cheers.
Oh God.
Sometimes you wanna go where
Oh my god.
everybody knows your name. AMC
Yeah.
theaters, apparently.
Apparently. Yours is AMC theaters. Mine is most coffee shops around.
Yeah,
That's
that's
pretty much how
valid.
that works.
All right,
Mm-hmm.
so Cabrini, what
Mm-hmm.
is this thing about? Had you'd heard about it before I mentioned it,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yeah, I did. I saw it. The many other times I've gone to the theater, there were like some trailers for it. Um, most like limited releases, they played the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I heard of it, but I don't know. And this was my assumption when I first saw it, I was like, oh no, not another horror movie. Like I just like that was
It
my
had that
first
vibe,
thought.
definitely.
It had that vibe. So I was like, oh god, I'm not gonna go see this one. But
Yeah.
um yeah, it was just like, and then when I saw the trailer again, I was like, oh, this is not scary. This is just the way it was said it.
So I don't know if you remember, but I remember seeing the trailer, but right before I can't remember if I think it was Sound of Freedom.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They were
Yep.
talking about International Women's Day, March 8th, 2024. I'm like, okay, that's a ways away, but
Mm-hmm.
here we go. I'm like, okay,
Yep.
this is a legit studio doing legit things. I hadn't heard of
Correct.
them before the whole Sound of Freedom debacle, one should say.
Yeah, they weren't. I mean, I've heard of Angel Studios, but I didn't hear
Have they
about.
always been producing The Chosen?
They did for a while. Yes.
Because they're
Um,
now doing all the distribution, the theatrical releases for The Chosen. It's all Angel Studios,
as
pretty
far as I
much.
know, that's still a thing. Um, I do know that because they worked closely with. I mean, several seasons. So yes, they that was my first interaction with Angel Studios. After that,
Okay.
it was Sound of Freedom, and then this one.
Yeah. Did you see The
Hmm.
Shift?
I didn't get to see The Shift, but I'm sure I can find it and watch it.
Right.
I can find it and watch it.
So this
But
movie
yeah,
is about 'cause neither of us are. You were raised like Catholic adjacent,
adjacent. Correct.
adjacent, Leg-
Yes.
Coptic. So
Coptic Orthodox, so it's very,
Coptic
very
Orthodox.
adjacent.
So like for those who don't know, like Egyptian Orthodox in a
Correct.
sense.
Yes. It's like if it's the closest to um it's the closest thing to Catholicism, I guess you could say. It's the
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like tradition, it's very similar. There are very mild differences, but I mean, I can say that about a lot of denominations.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So this is about Francesca Cabrini, Mother Cabrini from
Mother
Italy.
Cabrini? Mm-hmm.
From the mid to late 1800s. She was
Mm-hmm.
an immigrant. She came via the Pope, was sent by the Pope
Yes.
to New York to deal with the problems with the Italian American community there, just
Yeah.
poverty, lack of medical care. But her
Mm-hmm.
focus, along with her, team of sisters who we never learned their names.
No, I don't
We
think we
never
ever.
learned their names in the movie. I thought that was
Mm-mm.
very strategic of them to not give us their names, but just to
Yeah.
see them in action, to see them
Yeah.
move.
Yeah.
But so their focus was establishing an orphanage or
Yes.
reestablishing, so to speak, because there was an orphanage and it shut down, and they sent her there to like do the thing
To
because she was already doing
r-
orphanage things in Lombardy in
correct.
I can't pronounce the name of the Italian city. Congo something. Anyways,
Something like that. Yeah.
something like that. And so in this area of New York, a neighborhood called Five Points, which was just
Mm-hmm.
Italian poverty, you name it, it
Like
was there. Criminal
slums. Like,
behavior,
yeah.
prostitution, just
Everything.
all the things. And she and her sisters, merry band of sisters, renovated this building and built an orphanage, and eventually it
Yep.
just got to be too big. So
Yeah.
this really was a movie about expansion, so to speak, watching her go from this small little town, doing,
Yeah.
small things, so to speak, in Italy, going to New York to a foreign place where she speaks
Yeah.
the language, but she's still learning it,
Correct.
and being in Five Points, and then, running out of space because the need was so great.
Yeah.
and
It was
then
abundant. It was so much kids, so many kids,
so many kids,
so
then
many
having
kids.
to move to that. I think they never really quite said where that second location. I want to say it was Upper West Side,
It
and then
was
they,
kind of an area.
yeah, and then they ended up getting exiled, so to speak,
Yeah.
to kind of the upper Manhattan countryside on the other side of the
Yeah.
Hudson.
Mm-hmm.
15 acres, no water.
No
Really
water,
just
which was
set them up. I
Yep.
have a is that a bug bite or a pimple?
I have no idea. I can't see it.
That's a
Oh,
bug
it might be.
bite.
I was like, that might be a bug bite.
We got
Um,
mosquitoes here in New Orleans.
yes, the size of your hand.
Yeah.
Basically. Um,
Oh, it's
I
really
would
red. Yeah,
say,
that's a bug bite.
I would say like it was fascinating to see the the willpower she had like to expand and to just go with it
And to
because
adapt
and to adapt so quickly.
so quickly.
And it like I felt there was a little bit, and I'm sure it was almost kind like a, I don't know if deception is the correct word for it. Maybe it is, where the archbishop didn't really tell them what the
The
at
extent of
first
the
like what
problems.
the extent of the problem was, but then she said we don't have water, and I was like, yeah, that's a problem. Like it's a real
Like
problem.
that upset me because I'm like, yeah, I wanted to scream at her. I'm like, he's setting you up. Like
He
this is
is
not genuine.
absolutely.
They're basically trying to banish you out of the area. They don't want these Italians in the area, and they're trying to banish you out. Like they're setting, like don't do it. Just stand up and
Yeah.
be like, no, we're not doing this. We're gonna stay right
I
where we are. And then
really
she's like, you know what? We're gonna make this work.
She did, and I really half expected. I don't know why. Maybe that's just because my brain was like, I half expected her to go, absolutely not. Like
Right.
I really thought she was gonna say no, but she didn't.
She's
I
like, the
mean,
Jesuits failed, but we won't.
and she's like, no, we won't. And it just her determination in the midst of an illness, because that is very obvious from the very beginning that she is sick.
I think what she ended up passing away from, I had to look this up, was malaria or
Malaria. Mm-hmm.
I've seen one place say malaria. I've seen another place say dysentery,
So
which
like typhus,
maybe, but
maybe.
she had definite lung issues and
Yes.
just
Very
it
weak.
seems like just the repercussions of tuberculosis, I think is what they
Mm-hmm.
said. And she was given
Yes.
like 5 years to live, but the American doctor's like maybe two
Maybe two if you rest is
if you
basically what
rest. And she's like, yeah, no.
yeah. Well, and I don't think they indicated this in the movie necessarily, but her history, she was born premature.
Mm-hmm.
So her lungs never really fully like recovered from, especially during that time period. That's a hard thing to recover from. So I
And then
think
she
her
had the
lungs were
drowning
just weak.
accident as a child.
And then the drowning accident, and she made it worse. I
Right.
mean, so yeah, there's a lot of factors, but she did the thing though. Like she really did. Persevered.
If you had to like assign a theme to the movie, what would you say?
Mm, a theme. Um, hmm. A lot of willpower. I mean, I don't know. Like theme wise, I think determination. Like this against all odds. Like just
Yeah,
because there was so many odds to it. I don't know. I don't know if there's like one specific thing I would say. Um,
a very David and Goliath kind of story.
David and Goliath story for sure. Um, yeah, David and Goliath. It almost kind of felt like a Moses moment too, where like there was a lot of like this like kind of loss where there's like people were listening, not listening, going back and forth. So I feel like she I think it was probably more at least closer to like a David and Goliath moment versus a Moses moment. But I think she carried herself well either
Mm-hmm.
way. Um, yeah, she carried herself a lot better than most.
Definitely willpower.
Willpower.
Um,
A
just
lot of that.
against all odds.
Yeah.
I think this is definitely a woman's kind of movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is one of those
Mm-hmm.
I am woman, hear me roar kind of movies that I think
Literally.
women of any persuasion could
Any.
find a sense of what's the word? Pride in.
Yeah. And um it it really does mark you. Like the movie does mark you a little bit. As a woman, it marks you
Hmm.
because you're like, if she can do that,
I can do it.
I can do it. And it's like in the midst of illness and the and in a time where they really truly treated Italian immigrants very badly.
Very badly.
Like so bad. Like it was just like I did not realize how bad it was until I saw this movie.
I have to remind myself watching this just how young the country was at this time.
Yeah, it
So
wasn't
yeah,
that. Yeah.
you know, colonization happened and all that jazz, but the United States of America as it's a single sovereign entity
Mm-hmm.
was barely 100 years old, very young.
Barely. Yep.
We're still at that point. I think it was we were out of slavery at that point. That was like in 1889. No,
1889.
1869, somewhere
Yeah.
1889.
Yeah.
So, but this is up north. So by the time, you know, 1889 hit, slavery was pretty much well and gone in that part of the country
In that part of the
for
country, correct.
years.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, is the PG-13 rating suitable? I really wanted to see it with my 8-year-old daughter, but the
Mm-hmm.
rating concerns me. We
I
were
get that.
actually planning on answering this later. Do we answer this now?
Correct.
Since they
We
asked?
can. Yeah, we can if you want. Mm-hmm.
All right. That's a good little segue.
I love that.
So, okay, is this movie appropriate for your child, your 8-year-old daughter? Now,
Mm.
I think what you have to keep in mind, like we were saying, this really is the setting for this is the 1880s in the United States during the influx of immigration. So,
Correct.
a lot of racism, a lot of xenophobia. So, there are
Yeah.
racial slurs,
A lot of
violence.
them. Mm-hmm.
We're also talking about severe poverty. So, things that people do to
Mm-hmm.
survive. You know,
Yep.
there's violence, allusion to prostitution. There is a woman who, former prostitute, who kind of gets in the middle of these nuns and becomes a great help to them. They
Yeah.
basically rescue this woman.
They rescue her from it. Yeah.
She's a very Mary Magdalene kind of figure
Yeah.
in the
She
movie.
reminds me a lot of
So
that, like personality wise. Yeah, too. Where you
a
can
little
see
bit of
her.
gun violence. That was funny
Mm-hmm.
though.
That was um random and funny. It was funny. But yes.
Spoiler alert, a child shoots a pimp and it is
He doesn't even
comical.
shoot him like he shoots him in the leg.
He's like, the pimp will be okay. So
The
the
pip will be
pimp,
okay.
so the
That
orphan
was the comedic
shot
one.
the pimp who was trying to take the prostitute out, but you wouldn't move out the way. Like,
Correct. And that's exactly how that happened. And it was funny.
it's like
Um,
when you say it out loud,
when you say it out loud, you're like,
it's a
okay,
little
that
more
was funny.
ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
So I think this movie is definitely appropriate for.
I
There's some
agree.
what gives it that PG-13 rating is the violence and the
Yeah.
language, and
Yeah.
the language is really just old school racial slurs that you really
Mm-hmm.
don't hear much anymore. It's history.
Mm-mm.
So
Yeah.
you have to decide as a parent whether you're okay with your child hearing that and if you
Correct.
are prepared and equipped to explain it when she has questions.
Yeah.
But I would absolutely recommend this to women of
Mm-hmm.
any age. I think
Correct.
this is an important story, especially if you're trying to raise your daughter in a Christian household and in the Christian church. We're going to talk about that later though.
Correct. I think
So,
it's a good movie and appropriate to go to take your daughter. I would the only thing is like like Savannah said, the racial slurs, they're kind of old school, like they're not things that I don't know if those things are even said now, but um it's going to be probably one of those things where she may ask you, "Hey, what does that mean?" versus like knowing what that means. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Like you just cuz not it's not like a it's not a word that those words you don't typically hear right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in this that's going to
No.
traumatize your child, give her
No, no, no.
nightmares, or
No.
be seen as inappropriate. I think it's just
Mm-mm.
it's things that you as a parent, depending on where you are in your relationship with your kid, are you prepared to have that conversation and explain it to them? It's
Correct.
that kind of thing.
Yes. Mhm.
So let me
Yep.
know if that's helpful.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, I would recommend this to women of any age, especially if you're
I
raising your
agree.
daughter in the church, because it's a conversation starter.
It
Now,
is.
we talked a little bit last night. I did my little TikTok review, tried to keep it short, and by short, it was like 3 minutes less than what I've normally been doing. But
Mhm.
pros and cons. We're just gonna I don't even know.
Okay.
Like I think we agreed watch when we were talking last night.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a whole lot of negative to say
There really
about.
isn't.
There really isn't.
Mm-mm.
Um, I, I was chilling. There are certain movies where
Yeah.
you're a little more engaged in like there a gut response in the movie where
Yeah.
it's a little more exciting and you're kind of with it and moving with the action. And then there are some movies
Mm-hmm.
where you just sit back, you're chilling and enjoying the story.
Agreed.
Dune, when I saw Dune, you're gonna see Dune next week, but when I saw
I will.
Dune, I was very much physically engaged in the story. Like my gut hurt. I was so anxious.
Oh
But
God.
this movie, I'm sit back, chilling, just enjoying watching the story unfold. Killers of the Flower Moon was like that for me.
Correct. Yeah.
Killer of the Flower Moon, I feel like that's a particular taste. You're either okay with that kind of long story or you're not. But
Correct.
just kind of in the same vibe of we're just watching a story unfold. We're just
Yeah.
watching a story being told. Yay, I'm glad that helped.
Yay. I'm
And I don't
glad
know if
because
you know,
that's
because
good.
I should have given you a tour of StreamYard, but I think you can click to the left. No, not the
Yeah,
left.
I
Oh my
can
gosh,
see
I'm
her
so
comment.
left-handed. The right. And
Yes,
see,
I can see comments on this side.
yeah.
No, I think that's a good point. I don't think there was really like negativity. And I think the thing that I told you last night was there was a couple parts, like very small things that I felt pacing was a little too fast for me. But other than that, like it wasn't, but even that didn't bother me as much. It was just like, oh, I would have liked a little more context. But I think that's just that's me as a writer thinking versus me as like just a moviegoer watching a movie and being
Right.
like, oh, this is good. So like it was great. I loved it. I love that it was consistent. So yeah, it is long, but it's good.
It's long. I think that's the only thing that might bother some people. Some people
Mm-hmm.
might feel like it's too long. There
You don't say
were
that.
points of the movie where I'm like, they could have ended this here and it been fine, but then the
Mm-hmm.
story kept going and there was just more to
Yeah,
be
there was
told.
more. Mm-hmm.
Pros. The actress. So this is directed by Alejandro Gomez Monteverde, who directed Sound of Freedom. He also directed a movie called Bella. Fun story about that movie, Bella. That's one of his first, if not his first. One of his first
Mm-hmm.
movies, and that came out,
Yeah.
I want to say 2000 and I had to been in college, so it would have been when I was still going to Friendly Hills Church. So we're talking 2008-ish, 2007,
Okay.
somewhere around there. And
Okay.
that was a movie about a woman who was considering an abortion, and it's about a man who is still dealing with his own personal loss and just
Yeah.
them kind of coming together to deal with their own grief in a way.
Yeah.
Beautiful movie. He actually came to my church in Greensboro and screened it.
Oh, that's cool. I
Yeah.
love that. So look at that. Looking at
So
some
I've
and
known
know
who
something.
he was for a while. So when I saw his name pop up for Sound of Freedom, I'm like, I know him. How do I? Bella.
Yeah.
Oh, so highly
That's
recommend if you've
awesome.
never seen that movie. Great movie. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
if you like Sound of Freedom, I think you're going to enjoy
Yeah.
this. I think the pacing is very similar. There's something about him as a
Very.
director, the way he tells stories, is he's very quiet. He just kind of lets
Mm-hmm.
the story tell itself. He just lets the
Yeah.
events unfold and allows you, the viewer, to kind of just almost like you're in a think of an amusement park ride, and you know those log rides where you're just
Yes.
kind of floating along and you're
Mm-hmm.
enjoying the scenery and you're just kind of
Yeah.
engaged and relax and sit back until it
Yep.
boom. That's
Yeah.
what this movie kind of feels like. That's what he feels like as a director. I feel like he's guiding me along a river and allowing me to relax while I enjoy everything that's going on. Does that make sense?
Yes. I think that's a really good description of it. Cause yeah, it's just he's very quiet,
He's a
but
very quiet director.
he doesn't give he gives and you can see this, he gives the actor and actresses like very like a lot of freedom to kind of do and not hold them back because I felt that in Mother Cabrini. Like I felt her like when she was outraged about something, you can tell that she was like able to kind of show that the way she felt like she needed to show it versus like and still being dignified because she was I mean, yes, she was very angry at certain points, but like for the right reasons. Like it wasn't like her being you know what I mean? Like it felt very much like he allowed them to kind of just have creativity and to do and not hold them back. Very similar
Right.
to the way he did Sound of Freedom.
So also the guy who co-wrote, so Monteverde and a guy named Rod Barr co-wrote the movie.
Mhm.
They both wrote Sound of Freedom. So
Yes.
same team in a sense. Um I want to say same studio because the studio that actually produced Sound of Freedom was Fox Searchlight.
Yes.
But then Fox Searchlight was bought by Disney, which then they dropped the Fox part and just called it Searchlight. And then
Oh,
Disney shelved the film for what, 5 years?
so
And then
long.
Angel Studios bought the rights to it and distributed it. And then I'm sure Disney was like biting themselves in the butt for that decision because that movie
Yeah,
made buku money. Good
it
money
did.
for how much that movie cost to make,
Mhm.
plus marketing, which was very little.
Yeah.
I didn't hear about the movie until the week before it came
Yeah,
out,
I
and I
didn't
was like,
either.
"Oh, that'll be a fun little Fourth of July or July 3rd," because I saw it the day before because I actually got
Correct.
COVID that same day.
Yes, I
But
remember
that's neither here nor there.
that. Mhm.
Well, I tested positive for COVID the next day, but I got sick that night. It was crazy. It was the craziest thing,
It's the weirdest
and
stuff.
yeah, and yeah, that movie made a whole lot of money, and Disney
Mhm.
lost like $1 billion in 2023. So I'm sure
Me.
they're feeling some kind of way about letting that one go, knowing how much people really just received it. So
Yeah.
I think I wasn't too sure about Angel Studios as a production studio until I saw the shift and I said, okay, we're quality, we're doing good things.
Yeah.
So I think the movie is well written, well
Mhm.
directed. Christiana
Mhm.
Delana, I
Mhm.
don't know. Oh, who knows? Anyways, her who plays Mother Cabrini,
Yes.
I think this is in a sense one of those movies where the film is dependent on the actor or the lead actress
Yeah,
and
I
their
agree with that.
performance. Like if they fail, the entire movie fails. She really is just a workhorse leading a very heavy carriage. She
Correct.
is really just kind of leading and guiding this movie along. The tone is really
Mhm.
based on her. The tone is set
Yeah.
in the very beginning and it's up to her to really carry that tone and mold
Yeah.
it however she sees fit, but good enough that the audience can still follow along. Cuz
Yeah,
I
I
told you
agree.
yesterday on the phone something I noticed in the beginning, cuz the way this movie opens, sorry, spoiler alert, is a little boy pushing his dying mother in a wheelbarrow down the streets to a hospital.
Like
And
fast.
he's clearly this poor, Italian kid, and we don't know what he's pushing at first. We just know he's running. At first, I thought he might have been a messenger of some kind
Correct. Like
or
that's
trying
what
to
I thought at
do
first. Like,
work.
no.
And then we get this shot of a woman in a wheelbarrow. I'm like, holy crap. Okay, this is serious. Trying to take
Yes.
his mother to the hospital, but it's a whites only hospital and they won't treat her.
Nope.
Even though, they considered Italians to be brown,
Yes, they did.
you know, very
Mhm.
different from how we view Europeans in 2024. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I would never call someone from Italy white, but that's neither here nor there.
And it's not, but it's just like the discrimination, the outward discrimination that was just like it doesn't matter if you're sick or not. This was, and this is the part that like, and I know this has changed over the years clearly, but like for a doctor to take an oath to help the sick, and then during this time period you're like, no, I'm good. You gotta be like, it was just purely like discrimination and hate towards a people, and it just was so sad, and it broke my heart because when he got there and they couldn't do anything about it, it was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But the
Mhm.
genius of that scene and the way it
Mhm.
set the tone is, this boy's pushing this wheelbarrow and
Yeah.
people are yelling at him obscenities, slurs,
Yeah.
and he's just running. He's very mission oriented and he's
Very.
blocking out all this unnecessary noise. That
Yeah.
is this movie.
That's
That's it.
yes.
That if you want to say what is this
Yeah.
movie about, this is a movie about being mission minded and blocking out all that unnecessary noise. And
Correct.
that one scene, I mean, they could have not had that scene at all in the movie. I don't think it would have changed anything, but I think that scene was to kind of get us into the mood and give us
Mhm.
kind of an introduction as to what kind of story this was going to be. I thought
Mhm.
that was very well
Mhm.
done. I thought
It
that was a
grabs
very
you.
risky decision. It was an unnecessary decision. They didn't have to
No.
do that.
But I
But
loved
I,
it. It
I
was
think it was
good.
just beautifully done.
Mhm. I love it. I thought it was good. I thought it was I thought it was just the it was a good way to start, but it grabs you at the very beginning. Like it just it you just you're sucked into the movie at the very beginning. She's like, who is this boy? What is he doing? You know, that kind of thing.
And we meet up with him again later because we don't know anything about him at that point other
No.
than his mother is sick, and he
Yes.
is trying to get to a hospital. He is on a mission. And then we meet up with him much later.
Mhm.
But I
Yep.
thought there was the tone in this movie was very consistent, and I just love the way they set it up. The acting is
Mm-hmm.
great
Yeah.
from, our lead lady and then the archbishop and
Yeah.
just
Mm.
people everywhere. I mean, the sisters whose names we never know. We never get
No.
their names.
Nope. Never.
And I thought that was so there was something very biblical about that. There are a lot
Mm.
of women in the Bible whose names we never know, but they are so important. And what it's
Yeah.
not so much
Yeah.
who they are, but it's what they do and why. And
Yeah.
that's why it matters. And I think that's such
Mm-hmm.
a beautiful picture of what it means to be a Christian. That's you really do have to die to yourself and
You really
lose
do.
yourself
You do.
and make Christ the center. I thought that was
Correct.
beautifully done. And then you have the
Mm-hmm.
the only other woman whose name we know in this movie besides Mother Cabrini is the prostitute,
Yeah.
Victoria.
That's it. That's it. You don't know anybody else's
We don't know
name.
anyone else's name.
You just you
Those are
don't
the only
get
two
and
women
even
who have names in
that's
this
it.
movie, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And I think that was done on purpose, to be honest with you. I think that was the point to that. I mean, we can say the same thing where like the woman in scripture where it talks about the woman with the issue of blood. You don't know her name.
We don't know her name,
You don't, but
but
she's
we know her faith.
we know her faith, and we know, and I think that's the point, is that there's more of this like faith story, and the way that faith, it's not like preachy. It's not a preachy kind of thing. It's just like, hey, I'm gonna live it. And so I feel like, yeah, and that's very important that we don't know everybody else's name, but we only know those two, which
Right.
is very on purpose.
Now, other pros here, and we
Mm-hmm.
geeked out over this, but the
Yeah, we did.
cinematography
Oh my gosh,
and
that
the
was so
production
good.
design,
It was
it's
It
gorgeous.
was stunning. It was stunning.
Stunning.
It was so it just and it's just perfect. I don't like perfect is probably not the best,
The
but like
attention to detail, just the little
detail.
things, the lighting
Yes.
when they go underground in the sewer, the lighting,
Changes
the
completely
changes.
and it
It's
makes you feel like you're under
very
it.
and it really gives you this sense of bleakness. It's very muted. A lot of
Yes.
really almost colorless earth tones, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
No, I get what you're
A lot of
saying.
blacks, a lot
Yeah.
of browns, and
Yep.
the only real color you see, aside from like, the Pope who is in white,
Correct.
um, and then, the Archbishop who is, in his colors, and then
Mhm.
people throughout New York. But when you're in Five Points, which is the poor Italian neighborhood where she starts
Yeah.
in New York, the only person who has any real color, again, is a
Yeah.
prostitute. I
Yeah,
noticed
she has
that
color like
she, for a good, I say first 75% of the film, she's always in red, in some kind of
yes.
red. And
Yes.
then when she
Yep.
comes back from Italy, because she goes with them to Italy and then comes back, you can see she's starting to dress like them a little bit. Not the same frock, but the color schemes, darker
Yeah.
colors. She's matured. Something in her has changed. She's really
You can
just
tell.
let go of her past, and
Yeah.
she's a new woman. She's a new. You can see it visually
You
represented,
can
a new
absolutely see it.
creation. I was like, that is so clever. I am such a dork. This is why you don't go to film school, because it
I
ruins
just
the way
like
you watch movies.
It does, but like I saw that. I remember seeing her like in a very almost like a mauve, like a color, like it's just very simple after a while. But like she's just so important. And you're right, like the only because you see her mostly in just like bright red or whatever it was, and like very different where she was like less modest, I guess you could say. Like she was just like because that was her thing, and then afterwards it's crazy. Like those little details are so important because they represent something. But yeah, like outside of like New York and like some of those like colors, most of it was very muted, which is the point. It was definitely
But
the point.
I loved how even with the muted colors and just the poverty surrounding everything,
Mm-hmm.
they still were able to showcase just the beauty and the majesty of
Mm-hmm.
New York City.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's just like it just and you can tell when they moved to like the modern part how bright it was. Like it
Hmm.
was just a brighter thing versus being in Five Points where it was just very, very like just dark place. But I think that's the point is that it was a dark place.
It was a very dark place, but there's just
Mm-hmm.
this beauty in it. And I
Yeah.
loved how they were able to balance that. I think anyone that lives in like a major metropolitan city like New York, because I live in New Orleans, right? And you've been here
Mm-hmm.
several times, so you
Mm-hmm.
know, like there are parts of New York where it's like not New York, New Orleans, where it's like no,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, and it's
Yeah.
there for those who don't know. So I live in the city of New Orleans, right? And then 2005, Katrina happened. 2005, we are almost 20 years
Correct.
from Katrina. There are still places in the city of New Orleans that have not recovered from Katrina.
Yeah, you can tell
Crazy.
too.
There's a big old
Very obvious.
hospital. They're finally renovating, trying to fix up, trying to get it operational.
Oh, is
Sitting
it
in
the
the
one that we
middle
passed
of
by one time?
downtown. Um,
Yeah.
golly, the name just escaped me.
But we saw
But
this hospital.
Charity.
I've yeah. Yeah, yeah. I
And
remember that.
that has been vacant and empty, sitting in the middle of downtown New Orleans. And they're just starting to recover it and renovate it
Correct. And
from
that's a lot
a
of
hotel. There are neighborhoods that are still decimated and unlivable, and just
yeah.
this dank sadness of poverty. But yet, there is something about New Orleans, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that's just beautiful.
And there's a
And
very
just you
distinct
can't
one.
help but be drawn to it. And you can
Correct.
kind of understand that why people would give their absolute last dime to be a part of something so
Yeah.
beautiful. And they talk about, at the beginning, the very fabric of America changing because of immigration. But when you
Mm-hmm.
look at cities like New York, when you look at cities like New Orleans, Chicago, Philadelphia, even
Mm-hmm.
the fringes of that fabric, the breakage is beautiful.
Yeah,
And
and
you
I
want to be
think
a part of it.
and it's so it's it definitely, and even like just like the stark difference between downtown New Orleans where like the big sky, like the I'm talking like corporate buildings are, versus like the others where it's just kind of like it feels like the two worlds kind of like sort of mesh a little bit,
It's like
but
they
not
don't
really.
mix, but they belong together.
Right, they belong together. They don't, but it's definitely a difference. You can tell the difference. Um, and but I mean, you can say the same thing about. I mean, Charlotte has a lot of personalities. I mean, you know that like better than I do, but like it has a lot of personalities. There's depending on where you are. It's just the personalities are all
If
different.
Charlotte, North Carolina were a mental illness, it would be DID.
Yeah, I would agree. It's just everywhere. Like it's
Like,
just
who are
a
we today?
like who are we today? Like I mean something like I know this is going to be more something that you understand, but like South End is so different than the UC area. Like it's just the stark difference of like something that's a little bit more kind of down to earth, I guess, sort of, and then something that's just a little bit more upper scale bougie,
But
right?
what
Like
we're
it's just different.
seeing now in places like Charlotte, New Orleans, and New York is what they were afraid of, that fabric changing and not
Yeah, the fabric
realizing
changing.
that you can
Mm-hmm.
like alter the texture of the fabric and it still be the same fabric.
Correct. Yeah, that's true.
And
And I think
they
that
had
was the
no
fear they
idea the
had.
beauty that would come of all of that later. They didn't know.
They didn't.
They had no
No, they
idea.
didn't know.
They were
They
so
were
used to the
scared.
status quo, they were afraid of that status quo changing. But we're getting off
Fear.
topic, talking about our beautiful cities. So,
Yeah.
production design was gorgeous, cinematography was gorgeous, writing was gorgeous. The movie's
Yep.
just great. It's a solid, well done
Yeah.
film.
Solid movie. I love it. It was good.
What is next on our agenda? We already talked about cons. Now,
We
this
did.
one right here. Okay, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna give us a time limit. No, actually, no, I'm not. We're just gonna talk.
Okay.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm. It's a
comparison to
lot.
other Christian films,
Yeah.
there I could go off.
Mm,
I have
you
gone
can.
off.
You have gone off about this, and I know
But
your stance on it.
my issue with Christian films is just the lack of effort, because Christian filmmakers and Christian film studios in general are just so anti secular media. They're so anti film industry, so anti Hollywood.
Yeah,
Understandably so.
I get it.
They reject everything that comes with it. And what comes with that is artistry, is quality, is skill,
Correct.
is talent. They are so message focused, so focused on making sure we tell the gospel. Understandably
I
so,
get that.
that
Yeah.
they neglect everything else that matters, which means quality storytelling that makes sense, actors who can actually act,
Right.
writers who can write,
Mm-hmm.
cinematography, and you can do all this crap on a budget. Like, you don't need
Correct.
$100 million to give a quality
No,
film. I
you don't.
mean, Brokeback Mountain, for lack of a better example, was $14 million.
Yeah, it's
That's
not a.
it. That's not
It's not
huge.
a. It's just not one of those things where like I do feel like there was a several seasons, not just one, where there was a lot of laziness when it came to that kind of thing, but also just like the fear of actually putting out a movie that you didn't have to say, you didn't have to preach. Like you can
Right.
just let the movie talk. I mean, we have to be very honest. Like the Bible is messy. There's a lot of this is messy. This is not like clean and dry. I'm sorry, it's not. There's a lot of stuff in it. Go back to the Old Testament. There are so many things in it that's just sacrifices. That stuff was messy. This is all, it's not pristine, you know? And I feel like sometimes there's some movies that try to be that way,
Right.
and you can't be. You can't.
Mm-mm. I've always said about Christians, the way Christians are portrayed in most Christian movies is Christians are portrayed the way they want to be seen and not the way they actually are, which makes them
Correct. I
feel
agree with that.
disingenuous. So when you have these people who are outside of this Christian bubble view these movies, it feels fake.
Yeah, and
And here's the thing,
the impression we
I
want.
understand making Christian films for Christian families so that Christian people can enjoy all that
Correct.
media. I get that, but with film, you cannot be so singular. You are
have to be off of it.
creating artwork in a medium that is far reaching. So you have to
Correct.
keep that in mind that when you're making art in a medium that is designed to go everywhere, you have to keep in mind that everyone at some point is going to lay eyes on it. Now, are you going
Correct.
to shut people out so that they have no real access to it? And creating content that kind of pushes people away is inhibiting, is preventing access.
Yeah,
Like you have to
I
make that
agree.
decision. And I think a lot of Christian filmmakers are so focused on making sure they produce a movie that falls in line with Christian standards, they forget that they have an opportunity to reach people who are sick to death of Hollywood in general, who are sick to death of
Yeah.
the remakes and the reboots and the requels and
Yeah.
the all the things, who are sick to death of the agenda pushing in Hollywood. You have a whole audience of men in Hollywood who are sick to death of their media being prevented from really enjoying the media and the films that they've been enjoying for years because Hollywood studios are determined to feminize them.
Yeah.
There you have audiences that they could be reaching because everybody and their mama's sick of Hollywood right now. Me,
You're sick of Hollywood right now.
everyone
Yeah.
is sick of Hollywood.
I
There's
think
so
that's
much
good to know.
opportunity. What did Jesus say to the people? Um, the harvest is plenty, but the workers are few.
Correct. Yeah.
That's
And
what's
I
happening
think
in
this,
Hollywood
yeah.
right now. And I think there's an opportunity to reach people who are just lost in the scheme, in the sea of entertainment. And you
Yeah.
have a lot of Christian studios that are just not banking on that opportunity. But here comes Angel Studios with Sound of Freedom, with a
Yeah.
topic that's universally appalled, with an
Literally.
actor we all recognize. We all know Jim Caviezel. Yeah, he was
Of
Jesus that
course.
one time in that movie, A Passion of the
Correct.
Christ. But
Yeah.
everybody knows him. He was also crazy in that one movie with, I think, Ashley Judd, because she gets beat up in every movie. If I ever meet Ashley Judd, that'll be my first question. Why do you get beat up in every movie?
Every movie.
Every movie.
It's just, yeah. Like, and I think people are scared of that sometimes. And like Angel Studios, I mean, at this point, we can basically say they are not scared of just
No.
telling stories, and not even just telling stories, but telling them well, and not being so preachy about it. And like, I mean, we can even talk about that right now. Like this movie didn't, like, it preached without preaching. Like it gave you the gospel without having you to like actually say the word gospel, you know?
Right.
And it doesn't, and like, I mean, we're gonna probably talk about this in a little bit anyway, but like it's just this there's sometimes, and I mean so often, unfortunately, and I think just because of the time period and the things that have happened, and I get all that stuff, and not to dismiss anybody's story because like everybody's experience is so different, but like it's it brings it gave the Catholic Church a positive view and not so much a negative one. And in
Right.
just Christianity in general, like it didn't preach at you. Angel Studios was really good about that. And you're right, with like Sound of Freedom, um it's like they're getting a message out that's essentially like, hey, trafficking is wrong. And here's why it's like here's the multitude of reasons why it's wrong. But like
But mixing
it
the
just
gospel in it. Very
but mixing the gospel in
subtly.
it, but very like that's love. Like the fact that he went into the jungle, like the way he did to rescue one
One
like
child.
one child, which is so like it comes back, and like, and even with like Mother Cabrini, she did the same thing. She was like, I'm willing. She was willing to just, if she had one child that she could have rescued, she probably would have felt like she was fulfilled anyway.
Like she
But
almost died looking for one child.
one, she
One.
literally fainted. Like and she is sick. Like she's very sick, and it just it I don't know. Like it just blows my mind of like, you take the risk and you do such a good job. Angel Studios is coming, like it's
I
coming
feel
out,
like they're
like
coming up.
they're
They're
coming up.
figuring out a way to share the gospel with
Yeah,
a wider reaching audience
correct.
without preaching.
Without preaching, but giving you like marking you anyway.
Because you
And
can share
like,
the
yeah,
gospel without preaching a sermon. I think I said that in my TikTok. You
correct.
can
You
preach the
did.
gospel without
Yeah.
sharing a sermon. When
Yeah.
you get actors who can act, who can, because the gospel isn't just a statement; it's a verb.
Mhm. It's
It's
true.
action,
Yeah.
and that's
It's
what this
action.
movie was. It was the gospel in action.
It was the gospel in action, and you see it. You see it very, very, like clearly, and just this like determination of this woman who wanted to make a difference and help, and I think she really did change a lot of the way that New Yorkers, at least at that point, looked at women, but also looked at what she was doing, and like, and Italians, because I think her ultimate thing was, I want you to know that we're all alike. We all come from, we all come from over the ocean. You know what I mean? Like they all came, like Europeans didn't come from, I'm sorry, we didn't all live in America. Like it's just everybody came from a
Somewhere.
place
Because you're
somewhere.
first generation American.
I am first generation American. My parents are immigrants. And so I understand that story. Like I felt that so deeply. I'm like, I know what that's like. My dad came to New York. That was his first place he came. Like
And you still have
it's not,
family there.
I do. I still have a lot of family in New York, and it's it is just, that's that they struggled. They struggled to make a living, and they struggled to be accepted, and it's not, I mean, it's so interesting the way that people were treated out of fear in the 1800s and how people are treated now out of fear
Right.
in 2024. And this movie does a really good job about preaching the gospel, but not having to like say it. They just live it.
All right. Speaking of the gospel, you
Mm-hmm.
got places to be, I got places to be. So we're
I
going to
do
try to
too.
be somewhat quick about it. Matters of faith. Now, what I
Yes.
really wanted to kind of this is not going to be long at all, but
Mm-mm.
and this is kind of going into what we were going to talk about next too. This, being a Catholic centered
Mm-hmm.
film, in
Mm-hmm.
the sense that this is about a Catholic woman who was
She is.
canonized. She was Catholic saint,
She
Catholic
is Catholic
mission,
saint.
Pope, and all that
Mm-hmm.
jazz. But I think what I found interesting to me personally was, because I'm not Catholic. I've been to a Catholic mass before. I live
Mm-hmm.
in the city of New Orleans, which is very Catholic.
Correct.
And so you're surrounded by the Catholic history here.
Mm-hmm.
It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You're a part of that fabric, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
It's everything. Mardi Gras just happened, which is Catholic,
Correct.
but it's American, Southern, Gulf Coast Catholic, but it's
Yeah, pretty
Catholic.
much. Yeah.
And I found, even though this is a completely different denomination than what I was raised in, what I'm used to, what I go to every week,
Mm-hmm.
it's very relatable, because church people are
Mm-hmm.
church people are church people are church people.
Correct.
Church leaders are church leaders are church leaders are church leaders. And
Mm-hmm.
when we meet the archbishop, he reminded
Mm-hmm.
me of a lot of church leaders we have encountered who
Agreed.
are more concerned with their position than their mission. That rhymed
Correct.
unintentionally.
I agree.
And
No, I
so
agree.
they
Mm-hmm.
will do whatever is necessary to maintain their position and,
Yeah.
save themselves. And that's the archbishop, who
Yeah.
is, who has this position, who is an Irish. I don't think
I think
he's
he's
Irish. I think it was another dude who was Irish.
Yeah.
Who is, no, he's
Mm-hmm.
Irish, an Irish,
No, he's Irish.
the son of an Irish immigrant, and
Correct. Yeah.
but he has this position in the city of New York where he has influence. He's kind of the liaison between, the powers that be and the Catholic Church in that city.
Correct.
And here comes this Italian woman who is shaking things up and, threatening his position. So he
Yeah.
betrays her in a sense.
He does.
And it's like he tries to reconcile the betrayal by saying, I'm doing a good thing, but I have to save myself at the same time. And we've met leaders like that who will
Yeah.
do what they have to do to save themselves,
Mhm.
and, you know, the leaders under them who will do things by any means necessary to pursue their mission.
Yeah.
This is what obedience looks like. And that was a question within the movie, is talking about
Mhm.
obedience. And I remember he
Yeah.
saying, this is an order of obedience. You have to do this
An
obedience. But
order
I'm
of
like, well, who is she supposed
obedience.
to obey? God or the archbishop? Like, and we've
Correct.
been
And I
in that
think that,
position
yeah.
before with leaders. Like, who
Oh,
am
yeah.
I supposed to obey and do what God tells me to do, or do what you're telling me to do? Like, where is your motivation coming from? At what point do
Correct.
I respect leadership, and point do I stop? And
I
I
agree.
think, even if you're not Catholic, and that's kind of what we were going to go here. I think
Mhm.
as a Christian in church, if you're a Christian in church and you serve in church, I think just the church dynamics you're going to find relatable. I know there are people who are wondering, hey, I'm not Catholic, and am I going to be able to get anything out of this? Absolutely, because
Yes, you
church
will.
leadership is church leadership, and faith. Walking in faith, because that's what this is. This is about walking in faith and living
Like,
by faith and
correct.
being courageous in spite of it, and
Mhm.
doing it afraid.
Yeah.
That's universal
Correct.
within Christianity. And I
I
think
agree.
Mother Cabrini provides such a good example of what it
Mhm.
looks like to walk in faith. But also, I think this highlights just the uselessness of the modern church right now,
Mm.
because you think about all she did. This woman set up orphanages. She set up hospitals. I had no idea. Like Cabrini everywhere. I had no idea that was named after a person. Cabrini Green, the neighborhood in Chicago. Cabrini High School here in New Orleans. She set up
Mhm.
an orphanage in the French Quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, she
I didn't
did.
know. I
And
learned that
the
last
thing,
night. So she
yeah.
was
Mhm.
everywhere. And
Yeah.
the things that she does, we're now depending on the government to do. We're depending on the government to take care of children. We're depending on the government to take
Correct.
care of the sick. We were called to do that. That's the problem
Correct. The
with the
church
modern
is
church
that's the
now. I think
church.
Joyce Myers actually talked about this. I saw her years ago. How
Mhm.
we're depending on the government to do the church's job. And the
Yeah.
church really has lost its place in this modern age by taking some of its responsibilities and handing it off to the government, thinking, oh, the government can do better. No, 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 no. The government wasn't called to do all
Yeah.
that. We were.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think this movie serves as a call to action.
Correct. And
It
I think
could,
that's the point.
if
It
you're willing
is
to
the
have that
point.
conversation.
I also think that, I mean, that's absolutely correct. It's not,
I talk a
um,
lot.
no, you're fine. It's all good. It's like, um, there's, there's this moment in scripture where, like, if you do this for the least of these, you did this to me. And that's in Matthew, 25. And, it's, she did that. She did the things for the least of these. Like, that was her mission, was to do that. But also, she left a mark on a lot of like the world. Like, and it's not even, and it crossed denominations. It wasn't necessarily just in the Catholic Church. It was everywhere. And she was canonized, and it's a beautiful thing to see, um a woman who was sick, had a lot of things going like wrong for her. People rejected her. The movie really does tell you, where it says she simply didn't belong. That was a big theme in the movie. Whereas, like, she just kept hearing this, but
Stay where you
she
belong.
stay where you belong. You're not, like, like, whatever. And I mean, that came from the archbishop. That came, like, it was all of these things against her, and yet she still persevered through it. And you're right, the modern church has unfortunately given a lot of its, like, um
Calling.
responsibility, whatever you want to call it, away. And we are the ones who are called to heal, like, to heal the sick, to actually love on the sick, to give to the poor. All of these things that God has, like, told us to do. We're like, maybe give it away a little bit. Maybe give it away a little bit. But that's not, and I think that's unfortunate, but I think she really did exemplify this idea of, no, that's our job. We have to do that.
I think this also, you know, forces a conversation. What is a woman's role in church?
Yeah.
Where do
Yeah.
we belong in church?
Right.
You
Mm-hmm.
know,
It's a lot.
we've had conversations about, female pastors. When I say female pastors, I mean like women who are leading a church. that to me is separate than like, oh, a woman is the youth pastor at a church, or she's
Right.
the whatever
Mm-hmm.
pastor of a church. And that's a
Yeah.
conversation for another time. But
Right.
I think what this movie really highlights and shows is the differences between men and women and our strengths in the way we
Yeah.
were designed, because
Yeah.
she's definitely a leader. She's definitely a pastor in the sense that she is pastoring these other nuns, these unnamed nuns, and the prostitute named Victoria,
I
and all
love
these
her.
children, and she's leading them, but
Mm-hmm.
she's not leading a church. So much of the work that's happened here happens outside of the church, and I thought that was very, very
And that's
fascinating.
true. It does.
And but as women, I think because we live in this age where we're so obsessed with wanting to prove we can do things just as good as men, that's
Right.
not always true. It's not
Mm-hmm.
so much that we're weaker or we're worse than or less than or we're
No,
incapable, but I think as women, it's our duty to understand our own strengths in the
I
way
agree.
we were designed. And I think this movie
Yeah.
really highlights that, in that women,
Yeah.
I think men, the way what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to lead and pastor, but women, we're supposed to manage and nurture. And I think when we do that,
Mm-hmm.
that's what keeps the church moving.
Correct.
Management
Yeah.
and nurturing. That's
Yeah.
we're the
Mm-hmm.
backbone, and I don't think we as women walk in that with confidence. We're
No,
the
because it's
backbone.
always looked at. It's looked. I mean, majority of like the things that I grew up around was, hey, you're a helpmate. You help, and
There's
but
power in that position. There's
there
so
is
much
power,
power.
and that's good, and that's not a bad thing, and like that's just I think that's looked at sometimes as negative, and that's not true. It shouldn't be, but
No.
I mean, but yeah, like this movie really does give it marks women for good, and it also shows you what can be done if you do it right, like if you do it from your heart, and knowing that like you're gonna have to walk in your faith and not just show like, oh, I have faith. Okay, well, having faith and walking in your faith is different.
Yeah. I
Like,
think,
it's just different
we have to remember, like, Adam wasn't complete until Eve came along.
until Eve came.
Until
Correct.
Eve came along, and Eve was made from a piece of Adam's rib. He could have just gone into the dust and made another human being and did what he did the
He
first time,
didn't.
but no, he decided, I'm going to take a piece of Adam. I'm going to take a piece away from him, mold
And
a
give it
human
to her.
being designed for him, and then give it back
Yeah. And be alongside him.
and be alongside him, not from the
Mm-hmm.
rib, not from the head or not from the foot, but
Side.
side him. A piece of the body that protects the heart and the lungs.
Correct.
Sit in that, ladies. Our position is powerful. We
It's
are
very
we are
powerful.
necessary.
Mm-hmm.
We are so necessary.
We are part of God's design. Like, I
We are
think
part
that's
of
just
God. We were so intentional. We were created
very,
with
yeah.
purpose.
Yes, there's
Such
purpose.
purpose.
Yes, I
And
agree.
there's
And I
so
think
much power in that.
we have to remember that just as
The
women in general.
the first woman was a missionary. Let's be real here.
Correct.
It was the
Yeah.
Marys. They
Yeah,
were the first
they were.
one to carry the good news.
Yeah. And it was
They were the first
this is
ones.
wild. Yeah, it's true.
We were entrusted with that. So the next
Yeah.
time someone tells you, "Oh, well, you can't do this position in church,"
Watch me.
watch me.
Do it. Watch me do it anyway. Yeah, it's true. We did it.
We're amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I
agree.
have to say about that.
We are.
All right, we're coming to a close. Final rating. How would you?
Oh gosh. I would say honestly, 10 out of 10, to be honest with you. Like, it was beautiful. It was also refreshing. So, personally, 10 out of 10.
I'd say like
refreshing.
a 9.7 out of 10, just to give it a little bit of room. I'd
Hey,
say
yeah, whatever.
9.7 because I know the length and just how
Yeah,
quiet
okay,
and
yeah.
very chill the movie is might bother some people. I
Might
think
be
that's
bothersome.
the
10
only
out of 10.
thing. I wasn't
Yeah.
bothered. But I think
wasn't
it's
either.
it's
Didn't bother
solid.
me.
It's great. It's a well done quality Christian movie.
Highly encouraged to go see it. Very
Highly encouraged with
Yes.
4-quadrant appeal. And I think these are the kind of Christian movies that can turn the Christian film industry on its head and force them to pivot and change.
I agree. Yeah, 100%. And I do think that is That is, yeah. No, yeah, I
Speaking of
still
pivot
smell.
and change, you remember that
Hmm.
movie you made me watch that one time and I put you in Best Friend Timeout?
Which one? There's
Coffee
several.
Shop.
Oh, I love that movie.
Oh, I'm still mad at you for that. It's so good, Savannah. It's so good.
Ah, it was good. I
How dare
like that
you?
movie.
The
It's okay.
audacity. You don't know me at
We can
all.
disagree on that one.
Well, it's on Pureflix.
It is on PureFlix. You are right. It is.
I saw that and I got angry and I'm like, why am I angry? Oh yeah,
Because you
the
watched it.
memories. The
The memories.
memories.
Hey, there are some interesting movies. That one's very. I like that one, but I'm a little bit more cheesy than most. It's okay. You don't have to like my favorite movies.
I don't. This is also why we get along. We have different tastes in movies. We have
We
different
do.
tastes in men. Thank God.
Hmm. We do indeed.
She likes her men a little more mentally stable.
That is true. I do. Oh, you.
I don't mind a little crazy. It just makes things fun.
No, I'm good.
All right, you got place. Where are you going?
Huh? I got writing to do. I got some. I got some stuff to finish.
Where are you going? Like
Yeah.
Starbucks?
No, I'm actually gonna go over to a friend's house and work on some things because her Wi-Fi rocks. And then after that, I will go get my hair dyed. Remember, we talked about
Oh
this.
yeah,
This
yeah,
is
yeah.
all going. So I'm gonna look really different this
Are you
weekend.
gonna have like a dark red again? Because you like the dark
It's gonna
red.
be like a burgundy color. Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Yeah,
You've had that
I'm
before.
excited. I have,
And
except this
Ashley's
time of
doing it.
yes, she
We
is.
love Ashley.
We love Ashley.
Is she married yet?
Not yet. Not yet. We're getting there.
I'm so happy for her.
I am too.
God, she's been through it and
Yeah,
she has persevered and
I
she
love
has
her.
survived. You want to talk about the walking gospel? Like that girl right
That one.
there.
That one.
Like,
Walking gospel.
whoo.
Walking gospel. Literally. She's amazing.
The ish they put her through, what was it, Youth X 2019? Remember that? I'm still mad about it.
That's okay. We'll have to.
Like, that was so dirty.
I
But
know.
she's a good friend of ours who does hair,
We
and
love
she
her.
is just such a testimony.
She is. She's a rock star.
She's
We
incredible,
love her.
and she does amazing things with people's heads, and I'm proud of her, and I love her very much, and I miss her.
Me too. I'll let her know you said hi. I see her today.
All right,
Okay.
thank you for all the people who were like,
Yeah.
hi.
Seeing the shell with shoes on. I don't know.
If you don't know, then you haven't.
No, probably not. Okay. All right.
We got to get her caught up. She's just
Yeah, I
beginning
know.
her movie obsession journey.
Yeah, now that we have unlimited, it's kind of it's a done deal at this point.
Yep.
Okay. All right, time to go work.
All right, we are
More.
heading out. Drop any questions in the comment section, and we will answer accordingly and fun things. Thank you so much. Y'all are
Thank
amazing.
you.
Love y'all.
All right. See you later.
Peace.
Bye.